Ooh, engaging gameplay. That's very fun. See, the biggest problem I have with Call of Duty is that the campaign is nothing at all like the multiplayer. If they had a campaign that actually played similarly to the multiplayer, where it's like run and gun, it would be way more fun. But they expect you to play like a fucking brainlet and just do nothing and follow people around and do whatever and act like they're big and serious. It doesn't make any sense to me.
So, what was more entertaining, the first Modern Warfare or this one so far?
I mean, the first one was pretty fucking boring. There were points where just nothing was happening. Of the Modern Warfares that I've played, Modern Warfare 2 is still the best one. Though I have a feeling 3 is going to be better than 2 pacing-wise because it goes a little more ridiculous. Now, I will give them this. Of the differences between this and the original, the player characters are actual characters in this game, and they speak and have faces and participate in the plot, which is like, you know, a bare minimum compliment for the game, but like, they're not nothing, because you never see Soap's face in the original, and he never ever speaks.
It's okay, he looks really stupid once you do.
You never ever see Roach's face, and he never ever speaks. I don't even know who you play in the third game. Is it Yuri?
Yuri.
I don't think he speaks either.
Is Al-Qatala supposed to be Al-Qaeda?
Yeah, it's royalty-free Al-Qaeda. Well, but see, this is again Call of Duty going out of their way to avoid saying anything about anything, is that they make up these terrorist organizations and stuff, so that they're not actually making a commentary about actual warfare.
This game takes place in a fake country, right? Like for half of it?
Kazakhstan. Yep.
Yeah.
I think COD is a fun game, but it's not a game you go in hoping for a soap opera about society. It's a war game that shows war.
It's not a war game that shows war. It's a war game that glorifies war as this like operators are heroes and we're the good guys and they're the bad guys, and it paints this very black and white picture of war. And this game fucking lies to you that it's about this war is gray area, and sometimes the good guys do bad things to get the bad guys, but like, it's so fucking weak. If they really wanted to, and so there was even the one mission I had where you're going through the house and you have to like check your fire on like not shooting civilians or whatever. If you shoot too many of them, the mission just fucking fails you. If they really wanted to make it a commentary, they wouldn't tell you how to feel about a lot of shit. And they like paint it as, oh, this is good thing, this is bad thing. If they really wanted to make it like complex and morally gray, they would just have you doing things and not tell you how to feel about it. So you yourself feel like, oh, this is kind of fucked up. Like, we're just doing this shit. But no, they gotta make it like, oh, we're gonna torture somebody and bring their family in. Do you want to like skip this? Cause it's bad.
Like, yeah, no, if they wanted the message to be worth a damn, you would be able to shoot the baby and keep fucking going.
That would be maybe a bit much, but like, they wouldn't need to include the baby.
Yeah, but they wouldn't need to, but the point still
in a
stands. They would just have
game,
you doing
it's
shit.
It's always tough because it's like the Last of Us 2 thing where it's like, don't you, the player who decided to do this bad thing that Ellie does, feel bad? And it's like, well, Ellie was going to do it anyway. I'm just playing the game. I don't actually have agency to like decide she's not going to do that, you know?
And there are some games, there's like Dishonored, there's like the
Or like Mass Effect, right?
Mass Effect to a lesser degree, I think, because it's more, Mass Effect is definitely binary choices, but like Dishonored doesn't tell you that you can spare people or whatever. It like gives you the tools to like take people out non-lethally or whatever, but most of the time it doesn't necessarily tell you that like that's what you should be doing or shouldn't be doing, and it's up to you as a player to decide those choices.
What about Spec Ops: The Line? What about it?
Spec Ops: The Line is the same. Spec Ops: The Line has these little choices every once in a while to like that they don't tell you, so you can like do it, but it's by and large the same shit where it's like, ooh, look, you did this thing, isn't that awful?
Something that's kind of similar but like different is like there's one of the Fire Emblem games that has like a thing where you like sometimes are fighting like not bad guys, quote unquote, and it'll say you should try to not kill as many of like enemy units as possible, and it like rewards you with like bonuses if you do that, if you don't kill very many enemies.
The only time I had a sort of thought was during the AC-137, how lightly you obliterate anyone, but again, it's just war is bad, that's it.
I mean, that's basically like they definitely go with a like, ooh, war is bad at the same time as you just like gun down hundreds of people because you're a super soldier. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, there's a reason Wolfenstein's whole shtick with their reboot series is like showing how bad the Nazis are, because it's not like morally gray or whatever. It's like Nazis are bad. We all know that. Let's see them do awful shit and feel vindicated for doing this. Like, they don't have to pretend that it's something it's not.
Like, yeah, Wolfenstein is just Nazis are bad. Let's kill as many of them as we fucking can, plain and simple.
And Wolfenstein's a fucking perfect satire because people don't even realize that it's a satire.
Show me the COD scene where Price goes home and tries to reintegrate into society as a PTSD episode.
Yeah, that would be a fucking surprise. Honestly, that would be a really good indie game of just like, you know, it'd be sort of a little adventure game of like a guy who was a former soldier going back home and like trying to readjust and like trying to get a job and like living in this country that doesn't give a fuck about him as a person, even though he like laid down his life to preserve their way of life, that kind of thing. Like, that would be a thematically very interesting game.
I would imagine this hypothetical game being very like Firewatch-esque with how it's presented.
Yeah, just like a very simple game. You don't do a whole lot, but like it's just very thematically heavy.
Does the American Sniper movie go into him going back home and readjusting, or no?
I think the only movie that really goes into like somebody going home after war is like the first Rambo. And even the Rambos after the first Rambo like lose the plot and like it just becomes a glorified war movie.
I think expecting more from a Call of Duty game is unrealistic. Okay, I'm not. Do I want to pop off about games as a medium, or is that a tried out thing?
Well, I would just say, like, it's not a matter of expecting more. I mean, it is Call of Duty. It is, like, the most popular game franchise, practically.
Like, yeah, we're not talking about Call of Duty should be something different.
It's just what it is.
It's people reading too much into Call of Duty that is the problem, and Call of Duty trying to be more than it is, like with the fake.
Yeah. If it didn't try to be like all, you know, like trying to justify, I guess, then they wouldn't be like.
I mean, it's still interesting to look at like the like kind of iffy, slimy stuff it does, like how it works as propaganda of like always saying, oh, the bad guys are countries that the U.S. is currently opposed to. Funny how that works.
Like, yeah, they go out of their way to like make sure that you know that the bad guys are the bad guys. It's never like, oh, we're representative of like the current government and the people who are the bad guys want change, and like that, you know, they might be, you know, attacking government forces and stuff like that, but they're still like, you know, trying to they have like a justification for what they're doing, and they may be doing some like bad shit, but like they have a reason for it and they don't really have a choice. But no, it's like, the bad guys are gassing civilians, just so you know that they're the bad guys.
Yeah, because the U.S. would never do that, ever.
But Willie, is the game good or not?
Is the game good or not? No.
I mean, if you like Call of Duty games, even then it's still not good because like there's nothing like engaging about it.
Hey, it's okay that the good guys do torture because see, the bad guys are doing torture, so that means it's good. Fine.
I hate that argument so much.
I mean, that's what we've been saying the whole time. Yeah.
That's what this game is saying, right?
I know. I hate it. I hate it. I think it's more saying in war no one is good, buddy.
This game is absolutely not saying in war no one is good. They are absolutely glorifying the good guys. They go like, oh, Price is the only guy he's got to get the job done, and he's the go-getter, and he does the hard decisions like torture, and it's so dumb. They don't make Price out to be this like psycho. Like, it would be one thing if you were just like everybody was like really deeply uncomfortable with what Price was doing, but everybody just glorifies Price as this like badass, and the game like paints him as this badass, and it always has.
It's like, are we forgetting? Like, I know this is not reboot Price, but I remember very specifically in Modern Warfare 3, you threaten a guy with with chemical weapons in order to give up information.
Oh, and he does plenty of shit in 2, like and you just forgive him. Like he kills like U.S. soldiers along with Russian soldiers when he sets that nuke off, and he killed that one astronaut, but they're like, oh, the ends justify the means. Like, that's the themes that Call of Duty wants you to know. That's the shit they're saying, is like, there are people who have to get the job done no matter what like laws they're breaking, because they're the good guys and they get good guy things, and you should forgive them if they have to break the law. Like, it was the whole thing about, like Gaz said at the beginning, like, he doesn't care about all the bureaucracy or whatever. He just wants to like take the gloves off and be a real man and save the world, and he doesn't care what it takes to do that. Like, that's what kind of themes is that? That's just fucking propaganda.
It's just very also not in line with reality, because no, like in reality, there is no need to, like, taking the gloves off, like reducing the like restrictions in warfare is always a bad thing, right? It's like it just means more civilians get killed and collateral damage, which
Yeah, and if you look at like statistics from the Middle East on like all these like gloves off operations or whatever, you'll find that it was completely fucking unhelpful to like getting anything done, and all it did was end up with a lot of people dead who were just innocent people or just didn't deserve to die, and you end up with a lot of people PTSD coming back after they did all this shit for their country. Like, what was it for? They don't know.
yeah, it's not even functional because it like delegitimizes like your colonial force in whatever country. If like, because there's whole thing like, oh well, the good guys there want us there because we're bringing freedom, yada yada. It's like, well, no, if you make the terms of engagement like, yeah, gloves off, and they're gonna be like, okay, no, those psycho Americans just come here and fuck everything up.
Like, just imagine how the people in the Middle East felt when there's like a bunch of heavily armed dudes come into their town and like they're just like, oh, we're the good guys. Now you gotta just let us be here.
I do remember one scene. I don't remember where the fuck it's from, but it pissed me right the fuck on off. It was two U.S. soldiers on a rooftop. They were, scoped in. They were watching this.
Is it the one where they're like watching the guy pick up a gun and they're like, don't do it, and then they kill him?
Yeah,
and then
it's that.
his
It's
like
that.
son does it, and they're like, don't do it, and he just kills it. Yeah, I don't know what the fuck that's from. Is the stupidest fucking shit.
What I absolutely like. It's the dumbest shit. Like, if any of you knows what the fuck that is, The Long Road Home, is that what that is? Like, oh my god. Yeah, okay, so apparently it's called The Long Road Home. It's so fucking stupid because I guarantee you, if you swapped the places of the Americans and I forgot what fucking country they were in. They're
Middle Easterners, yeah.
some Middle East. If those two places were swapped, America would still find a way to make themselves the good guys because these are invaders, and we have to protect ourselves from the invaders. Yada yada yada.
There's so much like irony of like messing with like who are the good guys thing, like because like you could have like a thing of like some Call of Duty bros training Mujahideen fighters that go on to be the Taliban or whatever.
Yeah, because that's the thing. There are no fucking good guys, which loops us back to video games and how there is always the need to be a fucking good guy, apparently.
Well,
and
they
they
just
have to
need
make
to-
it deeper than it is. They try to make it deeper than it is.
They need to make another Cold War Call of Duty game where you play as the actual good guys, the Viet Cong. That's the main character. You're fighting the Americans.
You're fighting the Americans.
All for equality, like the one guy in the fucking Wolfenstein.
All
He's
for
like, oh, I want to play as the
equality."
Nazis. All for equality. It's like, what?
Oh my god.
You end up with this thing. It's like this company that made World War II games. Like, yeah, the Nazis were the bad guys. The Nazis are like the bad guys in history. Like, nobody thinks that the Nazis are the good guys that are in a sane mindset because they did such deplorable shit. So they're easy bad guys, and that's why so many games did that. That's why Wolfenstein does it. And like, but then you get to like modern stuff, and it's a lot messier when you like make it out like, oh, the America's the good guys and their occupation of the Middle East is justified because blah blah blah. And so with Call of Duty, they don't even try to say that. They just have like made up countries and made up groups that were fighting, so they don't have to say anything about it.
But then Russia. Don't forget, it's always still Russia.
Yeah, Russia's always the bad guys. And now also this is the like, we're forgiving Hadir because he also like believes in the same things we do, and I don't know what's going on anymore.
Yeah, he has information. He has information on Barkov that he can give us, so we're forgiving him.
It would be amazing if they had like a at the end of the game they like kept track of like how much ammo and how much like money you've spent. Like, that would be some like, because like US taxpayers pay for the military's budget. Like, you should see how much of the military's budget you used in this game just to show like how much money is being wasted.
We've already established that the missiles that we're using right now on the low end cost $150,000 on the low end.
Like fully like big boy like fighter jets cost like $50 million.
something like that.
You might need to add another 0.
I don't think it's that much for
Not per jet,
team.
I think it is.
not per jet, but definitely the programs cost that much. How much? Oh, you know what? Let's use the F-35. How much does the F-35 cost?
The F-16 costs anywhere from 12 to 80 million dollars.
The F-35 is a bit different because that's like 3 trillion.
I just want to know.
Like the F-35 program is just like so fucked beyond belief. But that is also U.S. military wasting a bunch of money.
No, I just want to know what. I just want to know what each individual plane costs.
Yeah.
Not the project as a whole.
Oh, okay.
Well, Google says an F-16 can, like, an individual plane can cost up to 80 million.
Well, the F-35.
Okay, and so if you have an $80 million plane, and then like what do we say for like fully stocked?
Like, for if it dropped its entire load, phrasing.
Yeah, let's assume like you take like one of those planes, you have it fully geared up, it's used all of its missiles and all of its ammo, and all like a full tank of gas.
Okay. So I figured out the first F-35A to roll off the line was $221 million. The first ever F-35 cost $221 million. I'm reading shit about there being a new agreement that'll bring the price down to like 80 million.
Well,
So-
instead of spending it on one plane, I think they should just give that money to like me.
Give the money to me.
True. I would spend it so much better.
Well, there's also like you hear like, oh, they've been working on the F-35 since like the 90s, and the whole project has cost like $2.5 trillion. None of that money has gone towards like veteran services or like, you know, having like specific jobs for veterans who can't like find a job, just as like a fallback or something like that, or like veterans housing or anything, because they don't give a shit about the people fighting. They just spend all the money on the tools of war.
Yeah, like we spend so much money making the damn veterans, and we don't give a
Well,
shit
you have to
about them.
also
We don't give a shit about them when they
remember
come back.
It's private companies that are just contractors for the government doing it. It's all part of capitalism.
I mean, like-
no capitalism.
Woo, it's
Wow.
over!
Oh my
Yeah.
god! Woo!
Do we need to do a real thoughts after we had that big long
Pretty good.
conversation about the ethics of Call of Duty?
I mean, what are we gonna say? Game boring.
Game's boring as
I thought it was
fuck.
awesome.
It's a Call of
Shut
Duty game.
It's insane how boring this was.
Was it just being excessively safe or something?
Yeah, it's sure like and it's excessively safe to the point where they lie to you about it being like morally heavy or like ethically heavy or whatever, with the scenes of like, oh, bringing the family in for the torture scene, or the stuff with young Farah and blah blah blah. It's like these are just pure shock value. It's not deep, it's not thematically interesting, it's pure shock value.
Well, I feel like it's a less compelling story than the original, which is pretty goofy, but has fun, crazy moments like the nuke going off and...
Said no fun, crazy moments. I mean, like every level or set piece was just like so boring.
Yeah, they were too fixated on like making it realistic, quote unquote. So like nothing is over the top and ridiculous. And I think that's just like, and I get people have been complaining about Call of Duty like getting away from its roots. So this was their like attempt to get back to it, because we had gotten so far away, because we had gotten like Call of Duties in the future, and like even the Modern Warfares had gotten like really excessive. But like, what the hell? This is what we ended up with.
Is the other remake, Modern Warfare 2.2, any better?
It's better than this, but it's still like the same dumb bullshit of like trying to make it seem deeper than it is, trying to make it seem like it's got better writing than it does, because the like cutscenes are like well choreographed or whatever. So like it looks visually kind of cool, so people like think it's better written. It's got some hilariously bad writing, like Marvel D tier movie level writing. It's ridiculous.
It's like fucking Thor Dark World type shit.
Yeah.
Why do you think I dislike COD? Were you not paying attention to the last 4.5 hours, like any point of the last 4.5 hours? You were here when we talked about why I don't like COD. Like, I feel like I don't need to rehash that.
talk about the
Well, we're
F-35.
talking about. I love COD. My favorite games ever.
Look, I am not into these like experience games where they sit you through shit going on and they expect you to like be invested in it. I am into games that are fucking games. So games that just give you a tool set and throw you out and let you play. That's why I played through Elden Ring fucking 3.5 times. I love how open-ended it is, and just it's a fucking game that you get to play. It's not one of these experience games. It's why, and I'll eventually get around to talking about God of War, but it's like why I like God of War a lot, but I will not play it myself because I would be bored to tears. But it's like it's super, super well written, and the cutscenes are really, really nice, and the gameplay is like it's just so much filler. There's so much filler in God of War.
Like I will always contend that the new God of Wars would make a fantastic book.
Yeah, I watched the cutscenes for the new one because Austin's been playing it and enjoying it because it's his kind of thing, but it's not my kind of thing. And I wouldn't enjoy playing through it. I wouldn't sit through 30 hours of what it has. And that's not to say that it's a bad game or whatever. It's just not what I'm looking for in a game. This is a bad game.
I have that problem as well. I could not stand Red Dead 2.
Red Dead 2 is the most boring, hand-holdy, on-rails game of all time.
For games like that, it more makes you want to ask, what is added from this thing being a game and not a movie? And I think it's mostly like immersion for something like Red Dead 2, where it's like mostly about the story, but you are in it as this character, right?
Woo, you're in it.
Even though they have a character. Same as like Last of Us.
So Dax, I will agree with you up to the point where I need to keep on tapping X in order to keep moving just a little bit quicker. Sucks me right out of it.
Fucking, yeah, the Rockstar's sprinting mechanics.
Right, because that me constantly tapping X reminds me that I'm just playing a video game and it's not immersive.
I hate Rockstar movement system. Yeah, so I have a love-hate relationship with like Rockstar games because I love GTA 5, but I hate GTA 5 because it is genuinely one of the best open world games of all time, but it's so wrapped up in being this thing that it shouldn't be because like the campaign is so wrapped up in being this like follow everything to a T experience that you don't get to utilize any of the sandbox that they set up for you. And it's crazy that they decided to do it that way, and they doubled down on that for Red Dead 2. Red Dead 2 also has an amazing open world and lots of fun things to explore and like things to interact with, but they set you on a fucking train track, and if you deviate, you die and you restart. It's ridiculous. And see, the funny thing is, people are talking about GTA Online ruined Rockstar. The newest GTA Online updates are finally headed in the right direction in terms of game design. So the casino heist and the Cayo Perico heist are designed in a way that you make your plan, you set it up, and then if you fuck up, you can still push your way through the mission and make it to the end. And as long as you make it to the end, you're good. You know, if you die, then that's the end of the thing. So it's like, that's how the missions should be designed, where you're given these tools, and if you fuck it up, the game doesn't just tell you you failed, because it's so interested in making this experience rather than you having fun. Because games should let you experiment, and I hate games that don't let you experiment, because at that point it's an experience and not a fucking game. And I don't play experiences.
That's why I don't play a lot of story games, because like I know story games are very popular. I don't play games for the story personally. If I wanted a good story, I'd watch them. I'm not saying that like good gameplay and good story can't coexist in the same game.
And yeah, so it's like that's the same way with me. It's like I aim for a game that's super fun to play, and if the story's bad, it doesn't matter to me. But if the story's good, then that's an elevation of the game. Because there's like people were so mad that Elden Ring didn't win best story for whatever, when Elden Ring's story is fucking all over the place, and even if it has like good writing and all the stuff, like you have to like read a fucking book. Like, I don't play Elden Ring for the story. Nobody does. Nobody plays Dark Souls for the story, because it's nonsense when you're like going through the game. You play it for the boss fights and the combat.
But here's the thing, people obsess over the lore of Souls and Elden Ring and stuff. They obsess over it partly because it's not fed to you, and it's like esoteric. It's like you're supposed to figure it out for yourself what like everything means.
Would I count Cyberpunk 2077 as a story game? Yeah, 100%. Cyberpunk, play any of the campaign missions in Cyberpunk and tell me if you can experiment with anything that's going on. No. You get a couple of dialogue choices to change things, but otherwise they're very linear, and you don't get to utilize the sandbox there's so many games nowadays that have these like experiences that are part of an open world that doesn't matter that it's open world because they just want to throw you in a linear path. Like GTA 5 story and Red Dead 2's story doesn't matter that it's open world, because if they were linear games, nothing would change in the story. I think that a true test of like, would a game still be good if you removed the open world? If the answer is that the story wouldn't change at all and like the campaign gameplay wouldn't change at all, then it doesn't need to be an open world. So it's like with Elden Ring, if you were to remove the open world from Elden Ring, then it would just be the same as like Dark Souls, but the open world elevates the experience because of the things that it does that Dark Souls can't do.
I would say it is just sort of like a thing that like an open world of exploration is antithetical to having a like forwardly driven story. Because like take for example, like I always talk about like Breath of the Wild, which is Ganon's coming back. Link, you have to go to the castle and beat him right now. It's like, okay, well, let me go pick flowers and run around a bunch of temples and like find sheep and chickens for this person. Let me do all these other things first. Oh, don't worry, I'll go fight the demon lord eventually.
Yeah, that is what's called narrative dissonance, and that is the sense of like the game tells you there's a sense of urgency that isn't there. And
Spider-Man PS4.
yeah, Spider-Man has it really bad. There's literally a part where it's like you get a call that someone's breaking into like a penthouse, and then the mission begins when you actually go to the penthouse, so you can like fuck around for however, like days. You can fuck around for days before the mission actually starts. GTA actually does it fine where most of the urgency comes once you start a mission. So that way you're like locked into doing something. And that's a better way of like structuring an open world where like the urgency comes mission by mission, and the in-betweens is like they give you some excuse for downtime. So there's not like the big doomsday clock. Like The Legend of Zelda should have been paced more like the fact that you had just woken up. It's already been 200 years. You need to get your strength back in order to be able to beat Ganon. Because that's how it is. That's how the gameplay is. If the story like fit with the gameplay, it would be more structured around that. But as it is, they guilt you into the fact that like Zelda's been fighting Ganon for 200 years, and then any second that you're not helping her out, you're like prolonging her suffering.
Well, you do also have some games that put you on a clock, like you need to go do this within this time, or...
Yeah, so there's like what's the zombie game? Dead Rising. They have like a clock. It's an interesting mechanic. The problem is that like for people who want to have a more casual experience, and it gives you some time to fuck around, and the game is all about like fucking around and trying things out. It's just like the timer can be kind of strict in some instances, so I don't know if it's like the best solution to like forcing urgency, but it's an interesting solution that not other games don't do.
There's a comment here. You play for the gameplay, story is an afterthought.
Sure. I mean, like, I still enjoy a game with a good story, and I'll, like, watch on YouTube games with good stories. Like, I watched God of War Ragnarok because I was really interested in that story, and it's really good. But I wouldn't play it myself because I have no interest in, like, stopping and listening to people talk and going through these, like, filler traversal bits and puzzles and whatever they filled the game with, because I'm all about, like, the combat loop. It's the same with, like, my problem with Doom Eternal was the dumb parkour in between combat arenas, because the combat arenas were super fun. It just felt like everything that wasn't combat arenas was filler. It wasn't engaging. I've talked about it before. One of my favorite games is Kingdom Hearts. I love the Kingdom Hearts games, and those stories are, if you've never played them, they're Oscar worthy.
The Kingdom Hearts stories are what go on inside of my brain, like, constantly.
People unironically like them.
Half-Life does gameplay and story amazing. So kind of. I think Half-Life 2 actually gets to a point where there's several points in Half-Life 2 where they lock you in a room and like make you listen to story, and the fact that they give you the full character control while it's going on is really easy to just start fucking around with the environment, because there's like enough stuff in the environment that you can mess with that you're not really paying attention. And because they spend so much time just dumping story on you while you're locked in a room, so that's still not quite great about it. It's like the story is not bad, it's just they lock you in a room and make you watch. It's better than like taking control away from you, which they do at the end of the game, but you know, whatever. It's not really my thing. At least you can mess with the mini teleporter. Yeah, the mini teleporter in Half-Life 2, that's my example of like there are fun things to mess around in the room so you're not really paying attention to what's going on.